Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Ask the Pastors. I was going to say, as always, I'm joined with Pastor Cowell and Pastor Lund, but I'm not joined with Pastor Lund today, but Pastor Cowell's here. Good morning, Thomas.
Morning.
Pastor Lund called about 10 or 15 minutes ago that he had gotten called away to something else. So he may still end up joining us during this hour if he gets back in time, but we do have a special guest with us today, Pastor Andy Schlund, whose name doesn't fully fit in the window, it doesn't look like, at least not for me, but all the way from Mexico City. So good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Doing all right.
Good. Our theme today, we said we were moving to themed shows to help guide your questions, is life as a missionary. So as you're watching, if you've got questions about life as a missionary or life in Mexico City, feel free to put those in the comments and we'll make sure to get to them. Looks like we've got a few people joining us already today. Marilyn Bernardo is here. Marilyn Simpson's here. Jeff Preeb is here. Joe Sentgraf. Henry and Evelyn Friedrich are here. Good morning, everybody. Anything new and exciting in your guys' world today? Wednesday already?
Wednesday already. Can't really keep track of the days anymore. With stay-in-place orders.
Yeah. Andy, you survived another earthquake here in the last couple of weeks, huh?
Yeah, there was an earthquake some 400 miles away. Similar to that of September 2 years ago, but not as close. So yeah, the building, the apartment building shook and all that good stuff, and we Charlotte was jumping on the bed behind me here in our guest room, and we heard the sirens go off, and just a minute later, apartment started shaking, and we got out, and yeah, they had a bunch of aftershocks. I think 100. Yeah, we didn't feel any of them, but yeah, fun time.
Well, and you guys have moved to a new apartment since a lot of people have heard from you, right? So
Yep.
You're on the
ground floor.
first floor now. Easier to get out in case of an earthquake.
So much easier. We go out our door and past the front desk, and we're out. Thankfully,
it's good.
Not the fifth floor anymore.
That's good. Thomas, no earthquakes in Burt, Iowa.
Nope, we're pretty stable here. None of my books have fallen off the shelf lately, so we're good.
Well, that's good. Good. Well, as you're joining with us this morning, if you want to put your name in the comments section so that we can know who's watching, that's great. Also, as always, if you want to send in comments throughout the week or questions about our themes, you can do that. You can email askthepastors@trinityalgona.org, or now you can actually text your questions in 515-575-9948. And we'll make sure that we get those included in our conversation. I was trying to think of anything exciting is happening around here. Not really. It's July. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. July 1st today.
Oh man,
which is crazy. Abby's birthday is in less than a week on the 7th.
Oh yes, I got an alert on my phone.
How convenient.
You know.
Also, the month of my birth, so that's exciting too. All the way at the end of it.
And your brother's birth.
Oh yeah, we've got another brother who's got a birthday this month too, don't we? Yeah, Matt's birthday is Friday.
Yep.
On the 3rd. So.
And
anyway, what's that?
And Uncle Dan.
Yeah, we don't need to go into all of the extended family. Sorry, Thomas.
No, this is I'm just soaking it in, the Schlund family history here. I'm taking notes.
The stuff that nobody cares about. but that passes the time as we wait for more people to join in the video stream. Well, so let's get started so we give people enough time to ask questions and for you to share too. As most of you who are watching probably know, Andy is one of the missionaries that we support here at Trinity. And so you directly get to support the work that's happening in Mexico City. And Andy and Kelsey and his family have been here presenting before. And so that's kind of our connecting point to having this conversation today. Maybe that's a good place to start, to tell us some more about you and your family.
Yeah. My wife and I have been married for 9 years now. We have 2 children, 2 girls. Charlotte, who is 5, and Margaret, who is 2. And so there we are at a park close to our old apartment. We've been here in Mexico City for 4 years now. And we're currently going through our immigration process, which we found out yesterday was approved. So now we get to go in and be fingerprinted and all that good stuff. And we're in our second home, which is closer to the church that I have been helping out with. Instead of having a half-hour drive, I have a 5-minute drive, which is very nice. But unfortunately, due to COVID and all that, I've been working from home pretty much since we moved here. So all that advantage is gone. But
now you have a 5-second commute.
Yeah, right, to the guest room. But such is life during this global pandemic.
You've got 2 daughters?
Yes. Charlotte and Margaret. I already told that. 5 and 2.
Nice.
And so they're all full of energy.
Really make it easy for you guys for you to work from home, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, come print me off a page, Daddy, or look at this thing I drew. Which it's a pleasure to be able to do that, and that's one of the blessings of being able to work home. The obvious disadvantage is that it interrupts the workday, but you take the good and the bad.
That's for sure. So you've been in Mexico 4 years. Been serving there in a couple of different capacities, but maybe how'd you decide to become a pastor? And then from there, not everybody goes on to be, I should have put maybe everybody's a missionary, but not everybody goes internationally. How'd you decide to become an international missionary?
Well, being at University of Nebraska at Kearney, and getting into theological discussions there. Both you and I went there, me for fewer years than you. But just in discussions, theologically, it piqued my interest. And some people expressed the notion that I might make a pretty decent pastor. So in discussion with our family and in discussion with friends, they thought I might make a decent pastor, so transferred over to Concordia University in Seward, Nebraska. Till recently, Brian Friedrich was president and is no longer. I'm looking at you, Evelyn Friedrich, but now he's at Concordia St. Paul. And there I got
my closer to us here, actually. So
that's true.
I know that's nice for Henry and Evelyn.
That is true. And so did my biblical languages, did the pre-sem program, and continued on to Concordia Seminary, became a pastor. And throughout all of that, I had always been really interested in cross-cultural discussions and getting to know people from different backgrounds and stuff. And so I figured working in another country might be interesting. And then I met my wife, who was not interested in that kind of stuff. I had no desire to go international. And then at Concordia Seminary, when I was working on my STM, my Master's of Sacred Theology,
which matches up with STM very well, right?
Yeah, Latin, English, that kind of stuff. But during that year, Kelsey was pregnant with Charlotte, and I got a email request from the Office of International Mission with Synod. All the higher graduate work people got this email, and asking if you ever considered teaching overseas. And so on a whim, I brought it up at dinner one night, and she, to my surprise, said, "We should consider this." And I said, "Really? You've been not avowedly, but you've been clear in your idea that you don't want to do that." And so we got to talking with Dan McMiller over at the International Center, and they suggested places like Japan, China, Sri Lanka, all the way across Argentina, Chile, and then finally they settled on Mexico. How about Mexico? And that really appealed to Kelsey because it's very close, very easy to get back to the States quick. And so that's how we arrived in Mexico.
Nice. Well, that leads nicely into our first question that we got from Jeff Preeb, who asks, were you able to say where you went?
Yeah, we said Kelsey throughout this whole process was not interested in going to Africa because she was concerned about hospitals and stuff like that, and she was concerned about the quality of healthcare we would receive, and so we kind of said no to that. So that was really our only restriction, and they do a pretty good job trying to fit missionaries to where they would be best served. So if you know French, it'd be good to go to West Africa. If you have particular skills in Mandarin or something like that, go to China. And so, yeah, they try to fit you in a place that'll suit you pretty good. So,
did you know much Spanish before you went, or did you learn a lot of it after you knew you were going?
So I had a couple courses in high school, one in college, but that was about it. And then once I learned of the call, then I started learning a little more Spanish with a tutor online, and then a little bit more in the Dominican Republic, which I left the Dominican Republic thinking I didn't know any Spanish, and arrived in Mexico and was able to converse with people. So I was thankful for that. And that's just the difference between Caribbean Spanish and Mexican Spanish.
Sure.
And so, yeah, but most of the Spanish that I've learned has been on the streets, as it were, paying attention to pastors here in Mexico and pretty much imitating what they say. And so a lot of on-the-spot training, because Spanish is not the same here as in Argentina, as in Uruguay, as in Chile. And so you got to learn different words and stuff like that.
Would you say, sorry, I won't ask all the questions, but one more.
No, you can ask as many as you want. Go for it.
Would you say in your daily work, you use mostly Spanish or English in your missionary activities?
Well, so right now, I'm mostly working in Spanish on my computer. That's to say, I'm not like speaking a lot of Spanish at this time, except to make like calls and stuff like that. But mostly it's preparing studies, and so I do speak a fair amount of Spanish in the meetings I'm a part of, I guess, because we have regular meetings for the institute, for the seminary, and I'll explain a lot of that later. But so I still use a fair amount of Spanish, just not as much as I did before the virus.
Well, maybe that's a good point to ask. Like, what are your responsibilities there? What are what are you doing in Mexico City?
Yeah, so kind of a threefold answer. I've been helping to shepherd the church, Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd here in Mexico City. And so serving them with weekly services, Bible studies, etc. All the responsibilities that typically come with being a pastor, sitting in meetings and all good stuff. And then also I've been director for the Biblical Institute that's called Martin Luther here in Mexico City. Well, it's all throughout Mexico. And so we've been coming out with a deacon program to help support the pastoral office. We work with facilitating deaconess conferences, and we're working on a pre-seminary program and regional intensives. We're trying to get those up and running, but those probably won't come out for a few more months. And so all of that pertains also to another responsibility as an adjunct professor of the Concordia Seminary El Reformador, the Reformer, in the Dominican Republic. And so I teach classes through them. This next year I'm teaching all 3 maestro classes, teacher classes, and I'm also teaching the exegesis of the Pauline corpus, the Pauline letters. And so I'm excited about that one, since I am an exegetical theologian. So deal primarily with biblical translations and stuff like that. So that'll be exciting. But those are my 3 areas of responsibility right now.
Very nice. We had another question written in kind of along the lines of your work there in Mexico. Marilyn asks, do you see much idol worshiping? And if so, what's most common?
Well, so probably the most common would be obviously saints. So worshiping saints and stuff like that. Every part of Mexico City has their own like little traditions and stuff like that. There's one in the south part of Mexico City called the Niñopa, and it's where they carry around a little statue of baby Jesus, and so it's kind of worshiping baby Jesus and stuff like that. I didn't really talk to anybody involved with that, but there's dancing and processions that go on most every night. And,
kind of in a Talladega Nights sort of way?
I guess
Dear baby
so.
Jesus.
Yeah, but in a more serious way. But they also have a lot of the cartels worship La Santa Muerte, the Holy Death, which is not really the Grim Reaper, but kind of along that line. And so everybody has the people who do this have a statue to death in their house, and so it's a kind of a freaky thing. But like I said, it's mostly just cartels that do this and their members. Otherwise, we have pretty much all the idols that exist in the U.S., money, power, etc., etc. Whatever idols people dedicate their their worship to and their time to. So, yeah, we have those two.
I kind of wonder with Marilyn's question, thinking outside of either Christianity or those kinds of idols, anything, more. The first thing that comes to mind for me is like the Mayans or things like that. Are there remnants of that still exist?
Yeah. And so when we lived in our old place in the south part of the city, we would go to this other, it's a pretty famous cathedral, St. John the Baptist. And so it's said to be like the second most important. But regularly there's indigenous groups that protest around it. I don't know. But one guy came up to me and said that their religious group was there thousands of years before Christianity arrived. Okay. And he gave me a little, I have it somewhere, but I'm not going to go look for it. But it was basically this sheet on legal sized paper of all the gods for the Aztec religion. And so there's still remnants of that. And regularly outside of the Metropolitan Cathedral, the most important cathedral, on really important days, there'll be Aztec shamans right outside the temple. And if you want to be cleansed, go for it. And so they'll take incense and they'll do their cleansing ritual on the spot, right outside of the cathedral. And so it's fascinating to see the kind of syncretism that exists there, the mixing of religions. So yeah, there's still indigenous religions that practice, though not to the extent where they're carving out people's hearts and stuff like that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad they stopped doing that at least.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thomas, any questions?
No. Now I'm just replaying Indiana Jones in my head and out of their chests. So
Yeah.
Jeff asks, did you replace somebody or is this a new position?
No, this is a relatively new position. The LCMS sent back, deployed a missionary a couple months before I arrived, who was the first missionary to be there since the late 90s. And so we were trying to reestablish relationships and help out where we can to build, to help build the number of pastors that are in Mexico. And so,
and your goal really is to do that, right? To raise up pastors to basically replace you at some point.
This is the primary goal of our work here, is to work ourselves out of a job, essentially. So we don't want to stay around forever, but we do want to help raise up pastors, plant congregations, and make ourselves useless, essentially, so that hopefully a seminary can be founded and Mexican pastors can continue to teach and create new pastors. So that's our big goal.
You want to talk about who else is there working with you, both from the missionary side, but also from the, you want to say native side, I suppose?
Yeah. So the other missionary here in Mexico City is Pastor Daniel Conrad, who graduated a year after our father from seminary, just to give you an idea of the age range. And I give him all sorts of business about his age. And
you're not saying he's old, he's just old enough to be our dad.
As he would say, he's part of the over the hill gang. And so those are his words. And so he's there. He primarily works with another congregation here in Mexico City, San Pablo, St. Paul Lutheran Church. And the pastor there is also part of the Over the Hill gang, a little farther down the hill than Pastor Conrad. And he had back surgery this last year. And so he's been trying to recover from that. And so it's been hard for him to conduct services. And so Pastor Conrad's been helping out there. But he's also dedicated to theological education. He works with the Institute and works with the seminary. And so the other pastor there at San Pablo, his name is Alvaro, and he's been the pastor there for years. He was one of the 2 pastors left in the whole synod after the LCMS pulled out, and so now we're at 7 pastors, and so we've made good strides. The other pastor was Pastor Isaac, who's the president, and I guess there was a third, Pastor Samuel Perez Gaona, and he was, so there were 3 pastors, and now we have 7, so we're very thankful for that. Pastor Benjamin Quesada is at St. Peter's Lutheran Church here in Mexico City, and so those are the 3 churches, and we definitely have a lot of possibility to plant other churches.
Yeah, what's the total population of Mexico City?
Total population of Mexico City, depending on where you draw the boundary, 20 million plus.
So yeah, 3 churches for 20 million is a pretty small number.
Yeah, still have a long way to go.
What does a normal week look like for you in a non-COVID world, I should say?
In a non-COVID world?
Yeah.
So part of my time, I go over to the Lutheran Hour Ministry office because I like working from there. I like social interaction. I could go up to my church, but then I'd be alone up there working, and I like to talk to people. So I go over to Lutheran Hour, and I usually work there and help them out with some of their Bible studies and other stuff. So usually a couple times a week I go over there. Then a couple times I try, well, because we just moved after COVID started, or right before COVID started, I haven't gone up to our church, and our church doesn't have internet, so that makes it kind of difficult to accomplish a lot of my tasks.
Look, Thomas, you guys have something in common. Not that you don't have internet, but it's almost like not having it, right?
Kind of.
And now he's frozen. Oh no, there he is.
It's ironic that just at that, I was going to say, it's ironic that just at that moment you froze for like 4 seconds on my end. So it's like you jinxed us.
All right, I shouldn't even talk about it, but
yeah, it's a sore
someday.
Point. It's a sore point. No, but so we don't have internet up there, and so most of my time is either spent at the Lutheran Hour headquarters here in Mexico or working here in my office at home. And it depends on what kind of doctor's appointments and stuff Kelsey and the girls have going on. But usually I have meetings. So I have meetings every other week for the Institute. And so once every other week, we have a meeting for about 2 hours to discuss what we need to get done and stuff like that. I have meetings with the seminary every week right now because we're still planning for this next academic year. And so, I also have a Bible study on Thursday afternoons, Tuesday afternoons, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday I help out with the service, usually from a technical point of view right now, but before COVID, I had services every Sunday. But now we're sharing between all the churches. One pastor does the service for all the churches in Mexico. And so I've only preached once since Easter. And so that's been strange, to say the least. But I have confirmation on Sunday afternoons. And so, yeah, that's a typical week for me.
What do your restrictions look like in Mexico in terms of public gatherings, things like that?
So we're currently in condition red, which restricts everything to pretty much just going out for groceries and medicine. And so they say we're moving to orange, which would allow groups of, I think, 10 to 20 to meet. And so we probably tentatively try to reopen, though probably still having the online aspect, because some of our members are old and have pre-existing conditions, so we'd want to be considerate of the possibility of transmitting to them. The other aspect is that a lot of our people have to come on public transportation to get to church. Mm-hmm. So that's a hot spot for transmitting the disease. And so, so we'd have to cautiously come back to that, because it's not the case that everybody has their own car and can stay relatively quarantined during the week. So, yeah.
Are they cleaning the public transportation more now since COVID has started?
I think so. I'm not sure, but they are definitely doing more restrictions. Like, they're handing out face guards now to everybody who doesn't have one who enters the transit. But we haven't been on public transportation for a while now because we're blessed with a car, of course. But
I was just thinking, I remember seeing a story a few weeks ago. Well, it's probably been a couple months ago now, about how they were running like the trains in New York City on a limited basis so that they could sanitize them, I think, once a day or something. And I was just thinking, like, I've ridden those trains before, and they have not always been known for being the cleanest. I mean, they're not super dirty, but they're not super clean either. And I'm just imagining how much cleaner our world might be here now post-COVID if we actually clean things daily rather than monthly.
Interestingly enough, all my experiences on the Mexico City transit, they've been clean. They've been very clean. Some of the cars are really worn down. Some of the lines are newer than others, but it's pretty clean. Not like what I've heard in other cities, and they're pretty reliable too. Like, there's not like delays like in New York or something like that. But
yeah.
It's
You were talking about teaching confirmation class as part of your regular routine. Marilyn asks, have you baptized many individuals in this ministry?
So I have had a total of 4 baptisms since I arrived here, one being Margaret, the youngest daughter. But for the amount of people that we've had in our congregation, to have 4, I know some pastors in a lot of rural locations can go years without having a baptism. And so we have had a few baptisms, and so we're very thankful for that.
Nice. Your mother asks, who's at the Lutheran Hour building?
Mother, good question, Mother. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, Mother. But
How
But
many times can you say mother in a sentence? Or in a...
mama.
Anyway, go for it.
Yeah. So Pastor Benjamin lives right next door, and so I get to see him when I go over there. But also the director of Lutheran Hour Ministries here in Mexico City, Omega Martinez, is there. Her secretary, and typically two other people. One's in charge of the online presence of Lutheran Hour, and the other one's in charge of what do you call it? All of the activities that they do, and so activities director. And so it's just nice going over there, participating in their Bible studies and stuff like that. And so those are the people who are over there. Yeah.
Nice. It's funny you were talking about code red lockdown, leaves you to only go out for groceries and medicine or whatever, doctor's appointments.
Loosely enforced.
Loosely enforced. I only think about that because of this next question. Nancy asks, what kind of school will Charlotte go to? And it made me think about our conversation before we got on here about how apparently cartel assassination attempts are also allowed under the code red lockdown. Is that?
Yeah, I don't think they're much concerned for the law in general, but yeah, so there was an assassination attempt on the chief of police here in Mexico City last week. Last week? Yeah, last week. And so that was at around 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was pretty close to where we were thinking of sending Charlotte to school.
But as Thomas kindly pointed out, what are the odds they carry out an assassination attempt on the same street? So maybe you're safe now.
This is true. Because they're not that common. This level of assassination attempts, yeah, they haven't really happened that often. I think the last one of this level probably happened in the 90s. So when a presidential candidate was assassinated. But yeah, so it's not all that common. We're not all that worried about it. However, with this lockdown and the measures that they're putting in place to start up the schools again, because they're very confident that they can start them up in August, Charlotte is a shy girl, and already sending her to a school where they only speak Spanish and stuff like that is a consideration for us of whether or not to put her into school, because with a lot of these restrictions, she'd have to wear a mask all day. She'd have to sit at a table by herself. And so it doesn't seem like it's very much worth it for kindergarten. And so I think what we're going to do is we're just going to do some homeschool stuff as much as you can do for that. And there's also some cooperatives that are going up throughout the city, homeschool cooperatives. And so hopefully we'll be able to do some sort of socialization through that and get her to make friends. She usually does pretty good at making friends, though. But with all the restrictions, we just don't see it as very fruitful, since the primary part of kindergarten is to make friends and stuff like that and learn how to socialize well. So, yeah.
Oh, good question.
Mm-hmm.
If other people have questions, like you've seen your fellow watchers do, go ahead and put those in the comment section, and we can make sure that we answer them. Getting to Mexico, so there's this sort of standard seminary training, which the longer you're a pastor, you realize how little it actually prepares you for being a pastor. Good foundation, but until it hits real life, it's different. But then you went through some missionary training on top of your seminary training, and that kind of accounts for that year you've been in Mexico 4 years. I've been here 5, although we kind of finished about the same time. What did that missionary training look like? What did it entail? Where did you have to go? Kind of maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. In the same way that all churches are not homogenous, in the same way, it's not the same trying to be a missionary as being a parish pastor. There are a lot of similar aspects, but there's a lot of stuff that you really have to focus on. And what we did was we had 2 weeks where we went every day to the International Center in St. Louis, and we talked about a lot of these issues, cross-cultural ministry. We talked a lot about the nuts and bolts of living in another country and what sort of things we need to really look out for, how the bureaucracy is different in another country than it is here, anticipating that you can't buy pickles in Mexico. That's just one example. But anticipating that some of the things that you're accustomed to in the States are not going to be available. And so dealing with culture shock and all these different aspects. And so that was 2 weeks. And then we spent a good amount of our time support raising, going around to different congregations like yours. And getting our support, because it's unfortunately it's not cheap to send a missionary. So that's pretty much what we were doing, communicating with donors and all that good stuff.
Then you were in the Dominican, right?
Oh yeah, that thing. We spent 3 months in the 3 or 4 months in the Dominican, living there and kind of getting an idea of culture shock and having other missionaries at hand to kind of help us through that. We continued our language learning, like I said earlier, and just kind of getting a feel for that. But
because the Dominican Republic is kind of home base for Latin America and South American missions, right?
It is. The regional director for Latin America, Caribbean, and Spain lives in the Dominican Republic. And so the regional office is based there, that has our business manager, that has our human care coordinator, and the regional chaplain is there. You might know him, Jonathan Nauman. And
he and his wife have been here to visit too.
That's right. So it was an opportunity just to get some help as we were transitioning to the field.
Awesome.
So let's go back to the pickles.
Are you concerned about the pickles?
Yeah, what's with the pickles? Why can't you? Why those specifically?
Because my wife loves pickles.
I know, but what's with Mexico not having them?
So I don't know. I don't know if people make their own pickles or what, but in a typical grocery store, all you can find are the little sliced pickles, hamburger dill pickles. And so we were surviving on that for a while. And then we found another grocery store where they sometimes have pickles, like full-on pickles, and that was very exciting for us. Because, in the U.S., any grocery store you go to, and there's practically half an aisle dedicated to pickles. And but not so in Mexico. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. It just happened.
It may be that they make them, themselves, because one of my favorite Mexican restaurants, La Juanita's in Sioux City, they've got delicious pickled carrots as a side dish. So maybe pickling stuff is just a common thing in the Mexican household.
Well, yeah, they pickle different stuff. So they have this pickled cabbage and carrots stuff that they like to put on specific tacos. What is it? I can't remember, but yeah, it's offered as a side on one particular type of taco, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I just don't eat it. It's kind of like sauerbraten. Are you guys familiar with sauerbraten? It was this thing we did on vicarage that my vicarage congregation did every
like sauerkraut.
Well, it's some sort of red cabbage.
Oh, sorry, you froze for a few seconds.
Yeah, it's some kind of red cabbage. Oh, I don't want to not do justice to it, but yeah, so they did that every year. It was one of the fundraisers for the church, and so that's kind of the thing. It's kind of this pickled, and it's a little spicier, so they add in some jalapenos to it too, and yeah. So pickling is not a thing unknown to Mexico. It's just they don't pickle cucumbers all that often, I guess.
Well, maybe in that vein, what are some of those things that you've found since you've been there, from a shopping perspective, other things that you miss or differences in grocery shopping or eating, or I don't know.
Differences in grocery shopping. Until recently, and Tom will understand this well.
You couldn't find your chunky peanut butter.
Yes. Yes.
That was the other thing I thought about when you were talking about the pickles.
They only had the super dinky peanut butter, and as Tom knows, in our household, peanut butter was put on anything and everything, because being the people of our size and the budget of our parents for groceries, you had to stretch it a little bit, and that's where peanut butter came in for us.
It was an easy protein source.
It was an easy protein source. And so until recently, we could only find the dinky ones. But I went and found a new grocery store where I can find the medium size. And that has been exciting for me. But no, there's a bunch of differences. I don't know. It's tough thinking right off the top of my head. But a lot of the prepared, processed stuff is not available. So another thing, another staple, tomato paste. It's hard to find tomato paste here. It's hard to find brown sugar. It's hard to find diced tomatoes in a can. So these things just aren't a staple, aren't a necessity for a lot of cooking in Mexico City, because a lot of people they cut their own tomatoes and stuff like that. It sounds weird to say that, but
they're not as lazy as we are here in America, huh?
Well, a lot of these convenience products are
right. I know.
Yeah. But so it's a little different. It's a little difference probably the best word. Because they don't find need for these products. Mountain Dew. You cannot find Mountain Dew in Mexico. And sometimes when you find Mountain Dew in Mexico, it's actually from Guatemala and it tastes different. And so I found that once. So no Mountain Dew.
I didn't know where I was going to use this, but since you mentioned the peanut butter part, I was going to say we were relatively normal sized kids when we were small.
Well, sure. Every kid starts as an embryo. It's that we never stopped.
No, yeah, that's true. I apparently had trouble keeping my eyes open for pictures, but there's Andy as a little baby.
Perfect. Keeping my eyes open.
Yeah, and that's our grandpa. But anyway. No, I was looking back at old pictures before we started, because when you do things like this, you need old pictures. So let's go back to the comment section. Oh, Marilyn Bernardo says, praise the Lord for Mission Central, which is true, right? Do you want to talk at all about your work with Mission Central?
Oh, Mission Gary. Yeah, we have a relationship. He's known us since we were young. And we recently had a video conference on Zoom with Mission Central and some of the supporters.
Which you rudely scheduled during this time at 10 o'clock.
You know, I intentionally did that. But no, we got a chance to connect with donors that way, and we just have a really good relationship with Missionary Gary. He's been very good to us, and the people of Mission Central have been very good to us, and we praise God for his work there.
Awesome. Kitty Bierstead said she's watching and enjoying. Thanks, Kitty. Go ahead, Thomas.
I was going to say on the missionary funding side, do you ever have any nervousness of funding drying up, or do you find your funding to be reliable?
Our funding, personally, me as a missionary, and our network service model account is doing fine, thankfully. Unfortunately, there's a lot of missionaries that aren't doing so well, and so that's kind of a worry for a lot of missionaries. We've been very blessed, as I said, through Mission Central and through our supporting congregations, but Synod has cut back their budget, and that includes the Office of International Mission, for which I'm under, and so there's a lot of concerning stuff. We've had to cut some stuff out of our regular programming budgets for like the seminary in the Dominican Republic and all that good stuff. And so there's a little bit of concern, but thankfully recently there's been a lot of support coming in for missionaries, and so we're very thankful for that. Another one of my supporting congregations, the pastor called me and said, we have some extra funds dedicated for missions. What should we do with it? And so it's nice to know that there's still some congregations out there that are, and like your congregation and your continued support of what we're doing. There's a lot of congregations that are still seeing the need to support international missions and continue with that. So we're very thankful to God for people like you, as PBS would say.
Yeah, and I think that's good that congregations. I think it's best when a congregation finds a missionary like you and commits to long-term support. Sometimes it's the case that you say, hey, let's support, this person for a year. And then you say, oh, well, let's try something new this year. But it seems to me from a budget perspective, maybe, finding that mission and making it your focus allows those missionaries reliable long-term support, not having to do the yearly budget dance. Yeah,
it certainly takes the pressure off when you have congregations that, like you said, are willing to dedicate long-term funding. We were supposed to come back this summer to do our every 2 years we're supposed to do support raising and go connect with congregations and stuff, and unfortunately with COVID that hasn't been possible.
This is like your virtual stop at Trinity right now.
It is.
And St. John's.
It is. And so we're thankful for these video internet possibilities.
It's almost like you're here.
Almost.
Another question from the comment section. This time from your father via your mother. What's the difference between American Mexican food and Mexican food? She said the second one was Dad asked. Because what we get here is just like what you eat there, right? When I drive through the Taco Bell drive-through, is that
when you go to Cinco de Mayo?
I go to Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, I've been to Cinco de Mayo, and it's tasty, but it's not really what you get in Mexico City.
What?
Yeah,
I've been lied to all these years.
Blew your mind.
Hey, the margaritas are the same, so
margaritas are the same. But
and you got a margarita tap in your house, right? Is that how that works?
It comes with every house. And a guacamole tap. So yeah. So no.
Sign me up. I'm coming.
But no, the difference is probably it all starts in the border between Texas and Mexico, and so that's where a lot of Tex-Mex has gone to. So they have to like cater it more to the American taste bud and what kinds of things that they like and what they don't like, and so that's really been catered more to ground beef, and so you won't find a taco in Mexico City that has ground beef. Unless you're doing one day guisado, and that's a whole different class of taco. So there are so many different kinds of tacos. I could spend the whole hour talking about that.
And you've sampled every one too, haven't you?
Right. And so mostly tacos consist of either chopped, like beef or pork or something like that, or an entire slice in your taco. And it has nopales, which are cactuses, onions.
That sounds painful. Doesn't that poke your mouth?
No.
The cactus? Oh, okay.
Because you remove them first. No, actually, it's what makes Mexicans really tough. They just eat the cactus. No. But they take all the spikes out and they cook it up and they chop them up and they put them in their tacos. And that's like essential to a taco. And obviously you have not experienced that because I haven't seen that in the States. Cheese, you don't.
Smothered, right?
Oh, no cheese. Cheese you have to request specially. Sometimes they'll have this kind of white, not really mozzarella, but this white cheese that you sprinkle over your taco. And that's about the extent of it. But the key to an excellent taco is salsa. A salsa makes or breaks a taco. Because most everybody makes their taco meat the same way. But whether or not you have a good salsa or not, that is the key. And if ever a Mexican says to you, oh, it's not that spicy, it's really spicy. This is most certainly true. Because for them, it's not.
Find that one out the hard way.
Spicy. So, yeah, salsa is where it's at. But
any other favorite dishes besides tacos?
Oh, guanzotles. Guanzotles are just absolutely wonderful. It's this plant, and I don't even know how to describe the plant because it doesn't really exist in the States. But they stew it up and stuff, and it comes with this really delicious salsa. And you got to take the parts of the plant off of the like the branches and stuff like that. Not branches, but you know what I mean, stems. And you just like put it in a taco and you eat it. And tortillas are essential for every meal. That's another thing.
The quality flour ones that we eat here in the United States.
Those exist, but no. Those are used for a lot of times a different dish. They're used for tlayudas, which are very tasty. I call it a Mexican pizza because it's like an open-faced, large, and you put all your toppings on and stuff like that. Refried beans instead of tomato sauce, and
what do you typically have your tortillas made out of?
Corn. And it's hard for me to eat flour tortillas anymore with just a regular taco. My favorite tortillas, though, are made out of nopales. So they're a cactus-based tortilla, and they are wonderful.
Thomas, you think the cactus taco is gluten-free?
Yeah, yes. Well, that's what I love, somewhat authentic Mexican restaurants in the States because almost their whole menu is gluten-free. So exactly. I see that. Love it. Good for them.
Well, and so gluten is not a big deal in Mexico because, you know, in the States in grocery stores, you have entire gluten-free sections. And really the gluten-free section here in Mexico are just for foreigners who
can't read the label. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And don't want to eat Mexican food. I don't know. But yeah. But most everything is gluten-free because it's well, and we had a friend visit who has celiacs, I think, and she had no problem navigating the restaurants here in Mexico City because everything is practically gluten-free. So.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we have come to the end of our hour. We could do a whole nother hour with Andy leading us through the cuisines found in Mexico City, but I think we'll pass on that.
Let's talk about it because Mexicans love talking about their food, and I love talking about their food too.
After COVID passes, Andy will host you in Mexico City and take you around to the greatest Mexican food places.
I will die from eating too many tacos, probably.
What a way to go, though. I mean, of all the ways to go, right? that can't be that bad, right?
My boss, first year I was here, we took him out for food, and he said after the meal, man, a missionary could die fat and happy in this country. And it is true.
Well, before we go, I'll give you one more little Tom and little Andy photo with our mom. Probably when I was looking at this one, we're probably the age of about Abby and Hannah right now.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
Back when we were cute.
I know. Before, well, whatever happened. No, it is interesting because you and I are the same age spread as Abby and Hannah. I was born in July. You were born in October, just like Abby was born in July and Hannah was born in October. So 2 years apart. Coming up next week, our theme is going to be, and this one comes from Pastor Cowell in our conversation last week, good works, living a justified and sanctified life. So if you've got questions about the place of good works in the life of a Christian, send those to us. This kind of came out of our conversation. Well, Andy, I don't know that you saw it, but we had done a 3-part series on some common questions or troubles that people have as they leave Christianity, looking at John Steingard, the lead singer of Hawk Nelson, who had written about how he was leaving. And so we took his questions or concerns sort of one at a time, but we kind of got into this topic of good works last week, and we'll take that up as a theme for next week. So if you've got questions about that, go ahead and send them to us, askthepastors@trinityalgona.org, or text 515-575-9948. We would love to talk more about that. Thomas, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about your thoughts behind that theme, but
well, sure.
Teaser.
Really, they're called good works because they're good, and I really want to focus on that. We as Lutherans do a wonderful job of confessing that we're saved by grace alone, but it's also good for us to bring out the fact that being insistent and enthusiastic about doing good works is actually a very Lutheran trait as well, from our reformers. And so it'll be good for us to talk about how can we productively and faithfully talk about good works and do good works, and where that fits into our faith. And I think there's a lot of possibilities for questions, different directions we can go. So I'm excited to see, what people have to ask on that topic.
Yeah. You can find out more about Ask the Pastors at our website, trinityalgona.org/askthepastors, where you can also find that email address and texting number, as well as our theme for the week. And there's even a form there. So if you don't want to email or text, you just put your thing in the form and click submit, and it'll come to us. So try to make it easy for you guys to ask questions. Share this with your friends. Invite them to join us. Invite them to watch afterwards. It doesn't matter. You don't have to watch live to submit a question, although if they come up, it's easier to do it that way. Evelyn and Henry say blessings, Andy. So
Thank you very much, and say hey to Brian next time you talk to him for me.
well, thanks for being here with us all the way from Mexico City, Andy.
It's a pleasure.
And we look forward to our conversation about good works in the life of a Christian next week. So take care, everybody.
I
Go
thought
ahead,
you were
Tom.
going to see our conversation about tacos. That's going to continue.
Oh,
But
yeah.
no, good works. Yes, good works.
Yeah.
Tacos, too, maybe. We'll have to bring Andy
Tacos are
back
good works.
for a conversation on that. Jeff says, fun morning, thanks. And Evelyn says, we will. So
Thanks.
awesome. Well, have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again later.